Does Toho have rules that you have to follow? Like I don't know. Or is there a rule like Godzilla cannot eat people or something like that? An all-new Godzilla connected universe is rising from IDW Comics. Here to tell us about the new series, simply titled Godzilla, is writer Tim Seeley. Tim, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm always happy to talk Godzilla.
Same, Tim. So, all new series, simply called Godzilla, a brand new story, coming later this year. What can you tell us about it now?
Well, the big setup that I think we're doing a little bit different than in the past is sort of creating a from-scratch universe for these characters to exist in. I'm taking, I think, what is traditional for Godzilla in history is that, each of these sort of blocks of films tends to create a new sort of time. There's the Showa stuff and Heisei stuff, and Millennium stuff. So we're kind of doing it that way. So it's not directly connected to previous continuity of any of the films, really. It's starting new with its own continuity, and that allows us to introduce new ideas and kind of play it in a different way, but also to have multiple titles. So it has 3 titles in the same universe that connect to each other, but they sort of expand all these elements from Godzilla stories previous and make them into something familiar but different, I think is the approach.
It's again sort of like begins in 1954, where the original film started, right? And then this time Godzilla is being awakened by something called the Kaisei. What do we need to know about that?
Essentially, in our universe, one of the things that we really liked and was interesting about previous versions of Godzilla, and it seems to be the most consistent thing, is that Godzilla exists. Godzilla is some kind of creature that was sleeping or slumbering, and is exposed to something, and then turns into this creature that makes him the king of the monsters. And so that idea we really liked, and so you can sort of ask, what is this energy? What did this to Godzilla? And so we sort of played with and made up this completely false term called Kaisei, which is essentially taking the idea of kaiju and then say, energy. So it's big beast energy, but there's existing energy source that created Godzilla. Humans have tried to master it. When they do, things go very badly. And so this is sort of a world which has been fundamentally changed by the existence of this energy source and by the kaiju themselves. So Godzilla's been attacking the world for, now about 80 years. And so humans have had to deal with that. Whole nations have risen and fallen in that time. And the effects of Godzilla on people is something that we really want to explore. So our book takes that idea and says essentially that America tried to contain this energy and then probably being sort of dumb and militant blew ourselves up. And so we're sort of engaging with America after it's essentially been a sort of hermit nation for a number of years. Now they're reestablishing their own G-force, and they have their own very distinct ways of trying to fight Godzilla.
I believe the Kaisei in the sort of synopsis says it also awakened other kaiju. Will these be familiar kaiju to longtime Godzilla fans, or are you taking the chance to create your own?
Both. And I think the way that we play with this sort of mutating energy source allows us to do something slightly different with the kaiju and how they're created. And a big part of that is that the energy, as we know, created Godzilla, mutated Godzilla. So then it must also be able to affect humans as well. We have these people who are affected by Godzilla and the kaiju. They're called G-mutants. And they're essentially people who have been imbued with this Kaisei energy. And so one of the characters in our book is affected by that. We'll have other characters in the other books as well. So it really sort of gives us the opportunity to do like a traditional Godzilla story and then sort of a Japanese Sentai story and also an American superhero story with a sort of, apocalypse story and also a space opera story. So we get to have all of our cake and eat it too, but within the constraints of this connected Godzilla universe.
On your G-Force team, you have kind of an eccentric cast of characters on G-Force. I noticed you've got Jaguar is a member of the team.
Yes, that was my first choice.
Nice.
When we started this book was I have to be able to use Jaguar. I think the design is so great. I love the origin of the character in the real life, that he was essentially created from a contest and a kid won. And the idea that he's sort of Superman, I mean, he's red, yellow, and blue as well, except he has this crazy, smiling, leering face. He's such a wonderful design. I just love him so much. In our story, G-Force Japan has loaned G-Force America Jaguar, but Jaguar hasn't been updated, his technology, since the 90s. So, he's a little bit slower than he used to be. Not everything works. And his only way to speak is to sing his 90s theme song.
Right. That's a really fun Easter egg in addition. So the powered up member of G-Force is Jason. And so what power does the Kaisei awaken in him? What are his powers? What is his capability?
So Jason, he's our teenage hothead imbued with Godzilla powers. He essentially is given this sort of unlimited source of energy of which he doesn't really know how to control. One of the things we play is that, of course, anybody would want this guy because he glows the same color as Godzilla. And as far as we know, he can punch Kaiju. But also it's unclear as to how his powers work, where they come from, if they're dangerous to other people. So he's kind of this walking radioactive, kind of combination of One Punch Man and the Hulk and maybe Dr. Manhattan. He's accepted this team because of what he can do, but they're unsure if this kid is on their side or is potentially going to blow everybody up.
Over the years, Godzilla is sometimes portrayed as a force of destruction and sometimes as a sort of a defender of Earth. So when you set out to create this new series, how did you end up going the destruction route?
Oh, I think we use the defender as well.
Oh, okay.
But I think our take on Godzilla is Godzilla defends the planet. Godzilla does not care about what is on it. The metaphor behind Godzilla that always touched me was the idea kind of presented in the 54 Godzilla was that Godzilla is Earth's vengeance on us. We do all these terrible things to the Earth and create atomic energy and threaten to blow ourselves up. And Godzilla is that personified, right? It's nuclear fears given a face. Though the nuclear thing clearly still exists, I think now it's, climate change and all that sort of environmental destruction that, we see what happens. We get the wildfires in California and we get droughts and we get, winters with no snow. And that's the sort of new face of environmental destruction. So Godzilla then gets to come back and punish us for our greed and our stupidity again, which is just how it's supposed to be.
And you've had the opportunity to sort of create a new Godzilla design. What can you tell us about the new look of Godzilla here?
Yeah, that was designed by Nicola, our series artist. A big part of what we wanted to play up was sort of visually to have you immediately know it's Godzilla. So, of course, we've got the scar texture skin and the big shards coming out of the back, the broken glass out of the back and everything. But we really wanted it to sort of even be more dangerous and impersonal and just a giant weapon. So he's got these sort of haunting eyes that are, pupilless. So he's not cute. But also, we were playing up this sort of the Kaisei energy, which, comes from the Earth itself. And so it's green, playing up this sort of distinction of this character, whereas traditional Godzilla tends to glow blue, or in the legendary stuff, maybe even pink. Ours is almost always green. So we really want to play that up and sort of really just make Godzilla this, it's a consistent character that shows up in this book. At least once an issue, I want Godzilla in the book. But Godzilla is a terrifying force of nature. And if you happen to be on the right side of Godzilla, you are lucky as hell. That's kind of how I'd like to play it.
So you're writing Godzilla. There's also two others in sort of this connected universe, Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone and Starship Godzilla. So what's the gist of Escape the Dead Zone?
Well, so in our series, as we describe, at some point, the Americans tried to recreate the experiment that turned a normal Godzillasaurus into a Godzilla. In doing so, we blew ourselves up. And so there's a section of the United States which is completely irradiated with this energy. And so that is called the dead zone. And I don't want to ruin too much about it, but essentially the dead zone is the contained apocalypse. It's like everything is falling apart. Society is no more. It's filled with mutants and monsters. And so into that steps the hero, and that character will have our ties to our larger story as well. So that gets to be your sort of post-apocalypse kaiju story. And then Starship Godzilla features a beloved, well-known Godzilla universe character, but it has been stolen by a crew of especially space pirates on the run from the Zillions. And so you get to see the world of space. And so all those great Godzilla space characters get to show up there. So that idea that we're taking all of the toys and then sort of restructuring how they appear with each other means that if you love the cosmic side of Godzilla and Space Godzilla and the Zillions and Planet X and everything like that, we've got a book for you. And if you love the big, monster fighting stuff, then we've got a book for you. And if you like this idea of humanity trying to save itself, building all kinds of crazy devices like Mogera and Jet Jaguar, then we also have a book for you.
Yeah, I've read the first few pages of all three of these, and there's some really cool stuff in there for Godzilla fans. For you personally, do you have any favorite Godzilla movies that inspire you? And also, are there any favorite kaiju that you want to like try and work into your story?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My favorite ones, Godzilla versus Megalon, which introduces Jaguar, which is a crazy movie. I love that one.
Yep.
The 54 one, I love. These Showa era or the Heisei ones where we saw the sort of the twofer movie with actually that's in the Millennium one with Mecha Godzilla. That's a favorite. All of the Heisei ones I have a big affection for. I think the best one probably period is Destroya versus Destroya. That's one of my favorite.
Yep.
Yeah, big emotional connection. You get to see, watch Godzilla have loss and regrets. That's pretty amazing. Biolante, I liked a lot. And though I don't think it's perfect, I can watch the hell out of All Out Monster Attack and Final Wars also, which is an insane movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. Finally, when you're making something Godzilla, does Toho have rules that you have to follow? Like I don't know. Is there a rule like Godzilla cannot eat people or something like that?
Yes, that is a rule.
Okay.
Godzilla cannot eat people. That is a rule. Yeah, there's a few. Though, yeah, Godzilla can't eat people. Godzilla is an it, not a he. Generally speaking, nothing is supposed to be bigger than Godzilla.
Interesting.
But there's obviously exceptions to that rule. Not that many, though. I was kind of surprised. I mean, I've worked on a lot of licensed stuff that, is not mine. So I kind of go into things with an open mind about being, told not to do that. But those are the only rules I've received so far. And I didn't get any notes on the first script or anything.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so they're really mellow so far. I think Toho also seems to kind of understand that Godzilla is such a pop culture icon and that interpretations of Godzilla are sort of one of the things that keeps Godzilla relevant. So, allowing people a little bit of creative freedom seems to be to their advantage, I think.
Well, as a big Godzilla fan myself, there's a lot of really cool things happening with these stories that I'm excited to dig into more. The first issue of Godzilla is out July 23rd. Sounds like there are a lot of cool kaiju things happening at IDW. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Viewers, for all your kaiju news, keep it right here at IGN.